can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Eevee and make it look easy.
What's up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Alright, today's video I'm going to be reviewing Gold Goblin #1 by Christopher Cantwell and Lan Medina. This comic is a very interesting one to me because, well, I knew that this was coming up. I just kind of forgot about it. There's a lot of stuff that's been going on in the Amazing Spider-Man side of things. If you haven't been keeping up, basically, what you kind of need to know to go into this, and this isn't really a secret, is that the Gold Goblin is none other than Norman Osborn. Norman Osborn, back in, I believe it was Nick Spencer's Amazing Spider-Man number 50, as well as the legacy numbering Amazing Spider-Man number 851, he basically got the sin shot out of him by the Sin Eater. The Sin Eater had a shotgun with this buckshot that basically, if he shot you with it, your sins would go away and you would technically be absolved of your sins. And the sum result of this is that Norman Osborn now feels guilt and empathy for all the terrible things that he did over the years, not the least of which being the murder of Gwen Stacy. And really just all the general hounding that he has done of Peter Parker throughout the years. And if you haven't been keeping up with the current run of Amazing Spider-Man, the thing you also might want to know is that Norman Osborn has turned over a new leaf and is helping Spider-Man by building him new tech, new suits, new gadgets to help him in his crusade of crime fighting in New York City. And what this comic is basically about is Norman Osborn cracking. The reason why I bring this up is because a lot of what's been going on with Norman lately has kind of been in this area of people wondering, okay, when is the other shoe gonna drop? What is Norman up to? What is the long game that Norman Osborn's playing here? The Green Goblin has got to still be in him. He is going to turn again at some point or another, and you probably wouldn't be wrong. And trust me, Spider-Man is thinking the exact same thing. He doesn't even really fully 100% trust Norman Osborn in his efforts, but he's trying to give him a chance, because if he doesn't give him a chance, what's the point in Norman actually trying to reform in the first place? That's kind of the whole thing I've seen lately with a lot of the villains in the Marvel Comics universe that are trying to be good guys now, is that no one's really giving them a chance. Very rare are people actually trying to give these people an opportunity to be better people. And once again, that's the argument that always comes up. If you're not going to allow this person to actually reform, you're always going to keep them at arm's length. You're always going to treat them like they're still a bad guy. What incentive does that person have to actually keep trying? And that's something I think is very compelling. I know a lot of times it always comes up that, characters don't get to, grow in comics. This is actually one of those instances, because that's what Norman's doing. He's genuinely afraid of becoming the Goblin again. And I brought up the earlier points to kind of roll it all back to something that, if you were reading comics around the time of Dark Reign and then the follow-up to that being Siege, the one thing everyone kept saying in those comics, and I'm not just talking about the readers, but also the characters in the comics, is that Norman Osborn, who at the time had become the director of Hammer, he had basically supplanted S.H.I.E.L.D. and became pretty much the top cop in the Marvel Comics universe. He was in charge of the Avengers, the Thunderbolts, everything. And it was during that time a lot of people said, yeah, at some point Norman is going to crack, the Green Goblin is going to come out, and all of this house of cards that he's built everything on is just going to come crashing down. That's when I think a lot of people are kind of keeping the same energy with this version of the character. And while Norman is struggling with trying to keep himself in check, he is still seeing the Green Goblin talking to him and, mocking him and trying to goad him into going back to his old ways. Things that we've seen in the comics before, but if you aren't as familiar with the comic side of things, you would probably find this very comparable to the performances we've seen by Willem Dafoe in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, where he's arguing with himself, where one version of him is Norman Osborn and the one in the mirror is the Green Goblin. It's the same kind of dynamic here. And the trick with this is whether or not Norman is going to snap. Now, this isn't just a one-shot. This is, I'm going to assume at the very least, be a mini-series. I don't know if it's been upgraded to ongoing yet. I'd have to look further into that. Maybe if it sells well, it probably would. But I like what is going on here. I don't like the retreading of the idea of Norman Osborn trying to be good and then eventually he's just going to become bad, because we know the Goblin Queen in the Amazing Spider-Man series is angling just for that. I really hope that they actually do take Norman Osborn off the table and make him a good guy. Take the whole Green Goblin thing, maybe even find a way for him to rehabilitate that image, because he's trying to be the Gold Goblin. I feel like there's got to be some kind of way to take Norman and rehabilitate that image. While yes, he will probably always be the Green Goblin to somebody, but whether he's Gold Goblin or Green Goblin, find a way to make it to where Norman Osborn can try to make penance and try to be a good guy. Like, I want to see that. I'm actually genuinely interested in that, despite the fact that I don't like the idea of trying to pretend that Norman is a good guy yet again for like the umpteenth millionth time, I feel like. But this is actually working, and honestly, I feel like Christopher Cantwell is the perfect guy for this, because Christopher Cantwell was instrumental in making me a fan of the Iron Man series that's going on currently. I'm normally not a fan of Iron Man. I actually am probably one of the biggest Iron Man haters in existence. But Christopher Cantwell's Iron Man has actually kind of made me want to ease up on that character a little bit. And that's a lot of what it takes a lot of times, is just good writing. Sometimes I feel like a good writer can make you like characters that you normally would hate. And that's kind of what's happening here. So I feel like who better than Christopher Cantwell to take a character that you're not supposed to like Norman Osborn, and try and find ways to make him relatable and likable, that it actually works. Like, there's some moments where you genuinely feel for Norman Osborn in some instances. I'm just like, man, bruh. My heart breaks for you, but I still don't trust you. Once again, I'm not sure how long this is going to go. I only see 3 issues on the docket so far. There's probably more, because that's usually how this works. They'll probably at the very least do 5 issues, maybe more, but I'm curious to see where it goes. I will play along just to, be a fly on the wall for this one. But anyways, let me know what you thought about Gold Goblin #1. Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.